Games that have a lot of parody or comedy usually end up falling a bit flat, but there is a brand new one called Zenith for the PlayStation 4. But does this action RPG make you laugh as well as be a solid game, or is this a comedian that should just be booed off stage? Zenith is an action RPG that focuses a lot of its main script and storyline with a lot of comedic value, poking fun at all the various different tropes and elements of RPGs and other video games in general. Zenith's core gameplay, though, is more or less a hack and slash or beat 'em up that's disguised as an action RPG. You have elements such as being able to equip stuff, and it has even an equipment screen that's very much like Western RPGs such as Diablo or the Baldur's Gate series, as well as a skill tree that you'll be able to earn skill points and get some various different moves to improve the amount of element power that you end up getting from certain things and increasing stats like defense or health. When in combat, though, you're just going to be button mashing for the most part. You do have a spell that you'll be able to use. In order to use spells, you must have a crystal equipped, with the crystals being different types of elements. Whatever one you have equipped is the only spell that you're going to be able to cast at that moment. As far as normal attacking, though, there is one simple combo. Depending upon what type of weapon you do have, whether it be a sword or a hammer or just a fist, you do have a slightly different combo. But for the most part, you're just going to be mashing the attack button repeatedly in order to take out most of your foes. The game tries to throw in depth as far as blocking and being able to roll out of the way of enemies, but with no true targeting system in the game, not only does it make it really impossible to hit enemies that you actually want to hit with spells, as you can basically just look in the direction, cast a magic, and then hope it ends up hitting what you're trying to, it also allows you not to be able to roll correctly or dodge enemy attacks, with it really being luck and a crapshoot if you're actually able to deflect attacks or get away from them. You have to face the direction that you want to roll in order to get away, and if you roll in the wrong direction or towards the enemy at any point, you're just going to end up taking that damage. There's an extreme amount of very questionable hit detection when it does come to the battles, with spells being completely gone off screen, but you can still roll accidentally into them and end up being affected by them. And other times, enemies will just gang up on you with 3 or 4 at a time, all swinging and attacking you, with no chance of you being able to either get out of the way or be able to block. So a lot of fights just come down to mashing the attack button and hope you defeat them before they end up defeating you. During the course of your adventure, you will have companions join you for random amounts of time, with one main companion being there for a majority of the game. However, you don't really have control over them. You can't switch to them, you can't equip them or tell them what to do, and they end up running into battle and just really doing nothing. They're more of a nuisance in fights than actually being beneficial in any way, shape, or form. Also, in modern day, you don't expect a game really to have camera issues, but Zenith ends up having a few. The camera is in a locked position depending upon where you currently are on screen, and there were actually a few times where the camera was in a bad spot where it ended up having my vision obscured by a random tree or rock, and I couldn't tell exactly what was going on. Thankfully, usually I could just button mash my way out of it or kind of run away and roll away so I could get the enemy away from said rock or tree, but in this day and age, there's no excuse really to have any sort of camera issue. The game uses kind of a facade of a fake RPG element when it comes to the equipment especially. All the equipment ends up looking the same. All helmets, chest plates, and belts are the exact same, with a few of them being a little bit different color scheme wise, but basically you know one's more powerful because you'll get one belt that's level 1 and then you get a belt that's level 3. They all look identical, but they may be slightly different color wise. You'll have to pull up your equipment menu, and they thankfully do all have different stats affecting various different types of elements and how much affinity you have with those particular elements, but outside of that, they don't end up affecting your character's appearance, and really honestly, they could have just done a little bit more to put some more effort when it came to the game's items and equipment. For an action RPG like this, the game isn't exceptionally long, but it ends up being artificially lengthened by one thing that drove me absolutely insane, and that is the game's loading time. It is inexcusable, especially once you get past the opening areas. Eventually you'll come to kind of the world map, where you're able to explore a little bit more, and there are random encounters that you can run into various enemies on the world map. When you run into an enemy, it has to load up a small battlefield for you to fight said enemy, and then when you leave, you also get a loading screen. For example, I would have a 7-second load to get in, a 4 or 5 second battle at most, and then a 20 to 25 second load time just to get back to the world map, with almost no point being to these random encounters. This made the game drag, and I mean extremely drag, to the point that I was getting frustrated, especially once I got a few hours into the game. From the technical side of things, while the game didn't crash on me, there was a myriad of other problems throughout the course of me playing it. There was a lot of slowdown and frame rate drops when I'd be in random areas, especially the open world map. Once you get to that point, the frame rate started to really crawl as I was going through the world map. The game's graphics are nothing to write home about, so honestly it was inexcusable to see this. You also have an absolute ton of clipping problems. A character would be on a bed, jump off, and half their body still be through the bed. There would be times where characters would pull objects out of absolutely nowhere, like they'd be halfway through their body and then they would be holding it in their hand. There was also times during cutscenes where characters were in the ground and would slowly start to rise up or glitch out as the cutscene was playing. Speaking of cutscenes, I actually was able to be killed in cutscenes. Monsters would somehow aggro me in the middle of a scene that I had no control over my character, and they would be killed and actually go to the game over screen, and I would have to restart from the checkpoint. Stuff like this is absolutely inexcusable. While some of the music in the game wasn't too bad, it really didn't have a rhyme or reason to it. You go from a heavy metal battle song, which was pretty awesome, and then you'd be like a happy comedy-filled pop and circumstance style song as soon as the next cutscene in the beginning. Music would cut off and turn on abruptly, and a lot of times the music would be really loud for absolutely no reason, and you have no options in the options menu to turn down either the sound effects or the music, so sometimes the music ended up blaring out all of the random game sound effects. However, the comedy in the game isn't too bad. It's actually pretty funny. It had quite a few moments that I ended up laughing out loud. It's a bit juvenile at times, and it definitely is for a more mature audience, as they do curse and drop F-bombs every once in a while. But a lot of the parody was done pretty well. There were some Resident Evil references thrown in, plenty of Final Fantasy references, and a lot of other games were kind of parodied as well throughout the course of it. Honestly, the game works as a comedy, and isn't too bad with what it's trying to do in that regard, but it unfortunately has a pretty poor action RPG hack and slash type of gameplay with just too many problems to really be worth going through the comedy. But if you're willing to persevere through it, you're definitely going to get a few laughs here and there, which is part of the reason why I can't completely crucify this game. The game is available on the PlayStation 4 for $19.99, and while you will get hours out of it, unfortunately there are going to be a lot of load times and a lot of other problems to kind of get through if you're going to get to a few hours worth of gameplay out of it. The game does not feature a full trophy list with a platinum, so that's another disappointing factor that this game has going against it. With all that's said and done, I really do think the game is funny. I like a lot of the comedy that's thrown in, though it's definitely not going to be for everyone, for sure. But if you're looking for something that's funny and you have no problem playing through a bad game, I may recommend it to you. But if you're expecting comedy and a decently playing action RPG, you're definitely not going to want to look at this game for sure. In the end, I'm going to be giving the game a 3 out of 10. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.